Yes, that's good for my side. Thank you very much. I don't know if we have a speaker first on for the NRS feedback, or if I should give it.
We have the NRAs, I think Tamash will present,
Yes.
I believe.
And Tamash will
and
do the third amendment, and I will do the second one.
Thank you very much.
So maybe if you can go to the next slide, yeah. So this is a summary of finally what was presented at the last consultative group in November. So we agreed to incorporate all the advanced hybrid copy related changes into the specific articles. And I have summarized here the main changes. So we also decided to exclude Italy North border, which will be tackled under the merger with Italy North. And the Southwest European border is also out of scope of the advanced bridge coupling, given the low benefits that it would bring on this border. We allowed also multiple cables at a single advanced hybrid coupling border to be assigned to separate EVH. And regarding the implementation timeline, so TSO are to be ready by the 31st of March next year, to be ready to implement it in SDAG by end of June next year. And there are also some testings to be performed with you, market participants, with different spike analysis. It was discussed last time, and it was proposed by TSO to perform 3 studies until March next year, with bidding zone business days to be defined together with you. And there will be at least 1 month of external parallel run, and an update of the explanatory notice scheduled by the end of March next year. So just to let you know that all NRAs have issued their national decision, the latest being on the 1st March this year. That's it for me.
Thank you. And the third amendment. Thank you.
Yes, many thanks and greetings. Good afternoon to everyone. My name is Tamás Gyarmati from MEC, the Hungarian NRA, here on behalf of the core NRAs to give you a feedback on the third amendment for the core day-ahead capacity calculation methodology. We did not prepare, let's say, content-wise let's say, overview, in the good hope that market parties are already familiar with the elements submitted in this amendment. So yeah, indeed, for NRAs, we have received the submitted amendment. We had collected all the dates of the receipt or the national submissions from the TSOs. And these dates summing up together shows 6 months approval deadline, and the end is expected around mid-August. So this means that yeah, the latest national submission was around mid-February, which means that core NRAs we actually have just started, let's say, the detailed assessment of the submitted content. But we would like to also, let's say, remind that in autumn there was also public consultation on the proposed amendments, and core regulators, they also tried to reply by sending a shadow opinion on the most important topics of this amendment. And indeed, therein we have highlighted some issues which were a bit, let's say, controversial or divided regarding the views of NRAs, and maybe these elements were, let's say, the use of cross-border relevant network elements and scanned elements in the coordinated validation. the extension of the Polish allocation constraint by an additional 2 years, and maybe how to ensure regulatory oversight on parameterization and selection criteria after the experimentation for the coordinated validation. All the other elements not mentioned here, we were more or less, let's say, fine with what was submitted. Then we received the final submitted methodology, and indeed we welcomed slight improvements regarding the final version, especially on, let's say, providing more transparency and information on the coordinated validation and the parameterization that we welcome. And indeed, we are actually trying to finalize the discussion among NRAs, let's say how to take a joint position during the approval process of this amendment of the core day-ahead CCM. Indeed, or let's say approval deadline is still far away. Nevertheless, we are close discussion with the TSOs, and we will try to speed up the process to go forward a coordinated position. Of course, we can never guarantee it will be successful, but we will take all the efforts we need, and maybe further information if is interested from market parties or organizers of the consultative group. We would stay ready to provide during, let's say, the next CG. I hope it's on the 6th of May. So that's all for today on this topic. Yeah, and thanks all for inviting us, for providing this update.
Thank you very much for the update. Before maybe switching to advanced hybrid coupling, is there any question on the amendment? I don't see any on the chat, but no hand raised. If there is no question, then we can go next. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so it's about me to introduce the advanced hybrid coupling, which I've been working on with the colleagues as Spock for this topic, actually. So most of the slides have been prepared during my vacation absence, so please, Ruud and Steve, jump in whenever you feel urged to do so. I think it's important to remind everyone that core TSOs are to apply the advanced hybrid coupling starting mid-2025, still subject to Euphemia and SDAC being ready. We're doing some performance tests with the colleagues for the time being, but nothing, no blockers so far on the horizon, but still this has to be mentioned, I think. The advanced hybrid coupling will comprise all SDAC bidding zone borders from core to other CCRs, except for the Italy northern borders and southwest European borders, as we already learned a few minutes ago. And based on this background, during the last core CG in November, market participants asked to clarify further line on how actually the testing procedure for AHC will look like. So the day-ahead amendment, the second amendment, which contains the method for AHC, has been approved shortly before Christmas, and that means that we are now, for the time being, implementing AHC in the central tools, in the local tools, updating all the tools to the upcoming differences that are related to AHC. And I think it's worth to highlight that core TSOs have to be ready by end of March next year, and that we want to go live with AHC as soon as possible, and the foreseen go live date is mid of 2025. So that means that we have a tight schedule for development, doing testing and all these stuff somehow in parallel, and that's why we came up with a slightly different approach. And yes, of course, also to highlight is that the 15-minute MTU and the AHC implementation might interfere. 15-minute MTU shall come first from ESTAC and Euphemia's perspective. So we're a bit depending on this interference there. If you can go to the next slide, maybe. There we have a more detailed description of the testing concept itself, and testing concept as such is supported by the regulations and provisions given by the CCM. So what we will do is an offline testing period starting mid-2024, lasting at least 6 months. So I'll come back to that, what that means later. And then shortly before we actually go live, and then including the 15-minute MTU market data, we will start a 1 month external parallel run. Of course, no need to say that we want a 1 month stable parallel run before we then will actually go live, but that's the prerequisite from the CCM. Why do we do this offline testing? In the end, we want to assess what does it mean if we introduce AHC. So how does the flow-based domain change to adapt the tools to that? And what does it mean for capacities and market allocations? So we will do that on some selected and analyzed timestamps from the past. And that means then we can do it offline. So we do not need the operator involvement, not do it in real time, but we can just run batches of business day through the full process chain. I come back to that later as well. So, and the external parallel run then, on the other hand side, will serve to demonstrate the performance and stability of the full process chain, including market coupling, publication tool to set up everything shortly before go live. And this, of course, needs then to be done on the right reference, meaning 15-minute MTU. It places high demands on IT and resources, both computations, individual validation, everything needs to be done in parallel. So we can only start once the 15-minute MTU processes like live a bit time, and everyone has adapted to this. And of course, it should be kept as short as possible before the actual go live. So yeah, we know that it is it might be not the ideal solution, but given those operational challenges with upcoming implementation we see from TSO side, even in other processes, and given the short implementation timeline, we think that that is a good approach and rationale to apply such a testing concept for the AHC. So offline testing in the end means to do something like similar that we know from the spike-like or spike approach, meaning that we have designed a spike-like approach. Please be careful with the wording. So this is the spike-like we're talking about now, not the spike itself. This is the approach that is foreseen to test on a half-yearly basis the impact of grid evolution and change in capacities. There will be a status update on this later as well. But now we are like using the spike approach to perform the AHC testing with a spike-like approach, so to say. There are some differences for AHC. We are using the principle for spike, meaning we test the full process chain to get representative results. But there's some small changes. So since there's no changes in the grid, we do not need to perform the merging step, but to adapt the data for AHC, of course. And since this is less, we don't see the need for merging, the process can be sped up, and hence for later runs, we will see on the timeline on the next slide, actually, we can run more historical business days than we would do on a regular spike analysis. So that's the main difference. So more business days and no merging, but of course including market coupling simulations and then all steps that would be regularly performed during the flow-based computation, meaning initial flow-based domain computation and RAW, local validation tools will run with the updated process so that it's fully representative in terms of the results. There was a hand raised.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jérôme, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's regarding the previous slide. So I know this is something we already discussed about the parallel run, but at the end, you say a 6 months parallel run would have implied a longer timeline to implement and put live advanced hybrid coupling. So how long that it would have been delay the go live, and would have been that a big issue to delay the go live and have a proper and longer parallel run?
Yes, Steve?
Yes, because it was clearly a regulatory request to go live as soon as possible. So we have to parallelize activities without without compromising in the end on what minimally is needed to be representative. So that's where we see that you can do this 6 months testing with the methodology that we're applying here, and you do not necessarily have to do it with external parallel run. And voilà, it's a case-by-case evaluation that has to be made. In this case here, the time to market was a very important criteria.
And just to have an idea about how long you would have been delayed?
Well, at least 6 months, then.
Yeah, so lower bound is 6 months, and then we would have to fit it into the process, have an environment, and so on. So it's very likely that it's then more than 6 months, right? So, but 6 months would be the minimum.
I see there is something in the chat. No, it left. Is there any other question?
If not, maybe later. So yeah, then I can continue with the timeline for this testing period. Please be aware that, yes, I already mentioned there's a lot of processes going on in parallel. So we're still working on the development on our side, already planning for those testing. So there might be small changes in this plan, but generally the formal deadline for the last report is end of March next year, and we already plan to provide some insights on AHC before that, as it was requested by you actually. So to do so, what we plan is to have a first spike-like run, like a TSO internal, ROSC internal testing run in May, to just check that actually everything that we prepare for the reports and to share with you works, so like the tested toolchain. And then the second run will be the results or the first results to be shared with the market participants, which is actually planned for July and August, and so then the data will be available in September. This second spike-like run still comprises 7 business days, and then based on the outcomes of that and those second spike-like run and the findings on the first spike-like run, we can then assess if further business days might be needed or not, and then we'll provide another run in November and by beginning of next year. So that's the rough planning for now. So environments and so on are available, but just please be aware that the implementation is actually still ongoing and done somehow in parallel. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to postpone spike-like runs, but it might be that we'll have to highlight or add some limitations if we provide the data. What maybe TSO-A and B not fully considered in terms of validation process or something like that. So just to be aware that the implementation is also ongoing. So, and one of the key questions we had is, so how do we actually select the business days? So given the framework for testing in total, we can assess 47 business days through this kind of iterative approach. I think that's representative and sufficient, and at least that's the feedback we received so far. But on the other hand side, it means that the business days we select to do this spike-like runs need to be representative. I think one of the main issues is that, of course, what actually means representative will somehow evolve during the testing process itself. But we have already asked you to provide some insight on what you think that the business days should cover. And in fact, colleagues are in parallel just starting to search for business days that actually reflect those to most of those criteria. So, for example, to select weekdays and weekends, to have situation with high and low wind feed, and summer and winter days, of course, and days representative for different thermal limits, and winter days, summer days, and so on. Ideally, we would have more seasons. I think that's clearly something for the number 3 and 4 spike-like run. Different combinations of German and French load. We were not actually sure where this suggestion is coming from, so it's focusing very strong on Germany and France, of course. So maybe it's just a request to clarify why exactly those NPs. Then days with high TSO interventions. In terms of fallback mode, we will of course test the fallback in terms of does it work when AHC is applied. So we will have a fallback test for the fallback situation with AHC, but it's honestly not foreseen to be one of those 7 business days that have the fallback. And of course, those 7 business days shall cover, I would say, the main 95% of situation possible, and not only the extreme circumstances. So hence, the same applies for situations with high IVA. For high IVA, we still have the discussion internally, and if it's worth to analyze this, because validation tools have changed, grid has changed, things have evolved since that day, so it will be nearly impossible to say if any change, does it mean increased individual validation reduction or lowered, are related to advanced hybrid coupling, and it would of course only work in those one direction, meaning we would check if a historical date with IVA would lead to different outcomes, and you could not see whereas in a situation where actually the change through AHC is foreseen. So hence, at least for the first spike-like runs, we will not focus on this, and then let's wait what comes out. But there's we have gathered like a list of rough criteria how we will actually, or I will ask the colleagues to just browse our archive and check for possible business days we can then start our internal simulations with on the list below.
We have a question from Olivier. Olivier, did you have a question? Maybe there is a mic problem, and he will come back with his question later. So go on.
So if you can maybe
in the chat, in the chat, he's actually having problems.
Fine. So if we can just finish, I think it's only one slide left. Most of the upper parts I've already tackled. So for the number 3 and number 4, we think that transitional seasons and different combinations of French and German loads. So still the question why those 2 net positions, but can be tackled. Highest and lowest exchanges in core or business days, maybe with average wind. So that's what we actually see for the number 3 and number 4 run. Then even maybe also doing the selection based on the results from number 2 and number 1 run. yeah, default settings. I don't think that this should be part of the actually 7 business days, and then market participants have gave also some feedback for which business days specifically to choose. So just one of the list, 4th of April core was not even live. So yeah, maybe also question why those specific business days. Yeah. And the same applies actually for the reasoning of the listed business days below. So what's actually behind those specific days? So for some we checked, but yeah.
Yes, Jérôme.
Yeah, so to answer this question, to complement and provide some more info on the business day we mentioned. So 2nd of July and 28th of May, there were very low prices. If I'm correct, mainly in Austria and Germany and Netherlands. So for both, at least for the day in July, going up to minus 500 euro. So due to, if I'm correct, due to high solar at that time in those countries. So that's why we put this for those two, the 2nd of July and 28th of May and 11th of September would have been high price on our 20 in some countries. Yeah, like above 500 euro on Germany, above 400 euro in Netherlands, on our running 20 on this 11th of September 2023.
Okay.
So that's why kind of example of why we put this kind of business day.
Yeah.
It may be good to go through this here a bit more in detail. We don't have to fix all the degrees of freedom, but to understand in terms of priorities. So we started on the previous slide to already take a direction of which are the key priorities. So the 7 business days, how we will fill them in the first one. So maybe we can just go through this step by step to make sure that we are having the right understanding and the alignment. So we kind of took these 4 bullet points that you see in green as these are the key criteria. It's actually also what we in our other typical spike approaches put forward to have weekend weekdays with playing with the wind summer winter time. Is that clear and understood that we will take this as a starting point for the first spike, because it's important. So this will be really the basis. And maybe Philippe, do we already have made a decision if for the last 2 ones, for the 20 business days, we would rerun or use 7 out of 20 business days again for DSET, or if we would look at completely different ones? Is it still an open question on our side, or are we taking the assumption these 7 are going to be reused every time as a basis?
I mean, hopefully we will compute these 7 twice. So for once for our internal run and then for this external run. So, and the only reason to recompute them would be if there is such a significant limitation in bike like run still. Otherwise, the result will just be the same. So, and that's what I would put as reasoning for, do we want to run them again or no? That's exactly. So it's mainly it's mainly question about do we deem the results for those 7 then after the second run sufficient, or is it worth to rerun them? So what has the higher value in terms of representativeness, right? So add more information or make the already existing more precise. But generally, it has not been decided.
And Olivier, you have a question?
Yeah, I think my mic is fixed now. So yeah, I think it's quite linked to the question Steve just asked. Is if we plan to cover all the dimensions of different situations throughout those 3 spike runs, external spike runs, would there be some changes expected between those runs that that makes it that we don't compare, that we don't have really a final view of all those dimensions, because the earlier runs would have been not containing all the CBs that the latest run have, or the methodology has changed. Is like could there, or is it that we from the first run we expect somehow all the inputs and the methods to be stabilized, and we freeze that, and then we go through the all the different situations at ISO methodology, ISO inputs.
Yeah. So the latter one is the ambition, right? So, but just as I mentioned, we're doing the implementation still in parallel. So that could then make a change to that necessary. But I mean, as it's on the slide, we've promised or at least plan to assess 47 business days, and we will only, I mean, it comes to 47 different. That's what I think you expect to do, right? So, and we will only come to that if we have like different business days in number 3 and number 4 run and in number. So the only reason to not do so would be if there was feedback or any limitations that would say, okay, we want to rerun something from number 1. But that the ambition is to have it like stable, as you said. So that's the ambition. But
and we would have a way to know whether this stability has been reached, or like I guess you would be transparent on things that change run on run, right? If anything is changing.
Yeah, we would be transparent on limitations when providing the data, and that would then in the other way around mean if no limitations, then it's of course like the final set of data.
Yeah. And maybe also just practically, what are we gonna receive from those spikes in terms of data? Is it we're gonna connect to some parallel run JAO platform, and all of the data would be available there as if it was the final setup, or is it more some Excel file and zip files that you're gonna send us?
That's the one.
The latter.
Yes. Okay. So it will be like a zip file with the CSV domains and so on, and the accompanying document like with the KPIs.
But so that zip file would contain all of the existing publication we have for the prod data, right? So you'll have ref procs, remedial actions. Yeah.
So it's just not setting up a separate environment on JAO.
Yeah.
Because that wouldn't work. So we have to provide the same data in a different way, but it's actually the same in terms of
all the same data sets. Yeah.
Is there also a question maybe, or sorry, someone was talking.
Yeah, so I wanted to conclude here. So it's comfortable that we are on the same page, that these are the 7 ones we can start with. And then if all goes well, we have 46 different business days. 47, different business days. And in worst case, it's then 33 if you would have to reuse in the second and or third and fourth one the 7 because they were not representative yet. So we then still have between 26 and 39 business days to assign, to choose from. And this slide here, The second slide is about then the criteria to do that. You mentioned, Philippe, that we had a question. A first question is on the second sub-bullet point, different combinations of DE, wind, and French loads. My personal take is it because it's the biggest bidding zones, and typically these two net positions or extreme net positions are then the most challenging in terms of the grid capacity and market exchanges. But maybe for market party side, you can add your perspective if there's some more reasoning behind it.
From my understanding, and correct me please if I'm wrong, it's because overall PTDFs are clusterized into those two variables. And that was also the idea behind it, but also because, yeah, it's like big bidding zones and there's a lot of influence. But we can come back also on this as market participants to argument better and explain better as well. And if possible, we can also come back with other business days for other spike-like run if needed as well. I don't know if someone wants to add anything.
At least that helps, yeah. Because for us, we were just wondering if it's like a bias on who answered, or if it's really just something we should focus on.
Well, maybe it is a bias, and it's mainly coming from the fact that there is not enough business day that we study. If there was, so we need to compromise. If you say we have 200 business day to study, maybe we're gonna start talking about Romanian hydro or something else. But because there is a very limited number of business days, we must compromise. And clearly the answer is gonna be biased by whoever is doing that compromise.
But then at least it's helpful for us, because we will then, when selecting the business days based on the criteria on the slide before, at least also evaluate that those variables, so to say, that maybe we're lucky and just by chance one of those business days are already in there. Okay. So not set it as an ambition, but at least check if by accident or by chance it's somewhere in the data set.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I think we can go to the next slide, if everything is clear for everyone as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
So just to be crystal clear on how we will proceed. So we will do our first spike one internally, then the second one we will deliver the first data set. And I guess also at that moment, we will come then with more the concrete proposal based on also your input IDs that were here on the table. I present on the slide, we'll then come with the concrete proposal of the selection of business days. And I guess that if there is still some trade-off to do on our side, that there is still room to let you know. So if we have to choose between criteria A or B, and there is no clear preference on our side, that you can still offer to take that decision jointly. But at least it's helpful for us to already also have your input for doing this exercise. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much. And on to, I think, the next subject.
Yes, hello everybody. I am Nakisa from Elio Grid International. I represent Elio. I am part of the Spark task force within the flow-based expert team for day-ahead capacity calculation, and I just wanted to explain a bit about the spike concept, especially the half-yearly spike that we are doing in our task force. So the spike, the standard process for assessing the impact of the change in core capacity calculation. And then half-yearly spike means that every 6 months, we want to assess the impact of the future grid evolution on the capacity calculation in day ahead. That means that we are going to run the full capacity calculation with all the steps that it has in the normal operation. And this process will be done by expert, not by the operator. And that's the reason that it will take more time. There are essential steps. I will explain a little bit the first step, that is the selecting the business day later. But the first step would be the adopting the input data for grid evolution, so making the IGM. And then consequently, the new CGM that is part of this will be part of this IGM. And we estimate that it will take 2 weeks for executing the 7 business days spike. Then the NRAW and TSO local validation also, they need time, of course, and we estimated that for NRAW would be more than 2 days for executing this 7 business day, and for local validation, 1 or 2 days will be taken. And for the business day, we will run for 7 business day. We think that it can represent well our process. And we received, almost 1 month ago, we had a meeting with market parties, and after that, we received a suggestion for the business day criteria. That is, of course, for the advanced hybrid coupling spark-like process, but we also would like to accommodate as much as possible their suggestion in our business days. And we discussed it with the TSO last week in core summit in Zagreb. And yeah, so the next step with us, of course, the advanced hybrid coupling has a priority. However, we parallel with that one also, we work on our half-yearly spike. And our mission is to execute the first spike, half-yearly spike by the end of this year. That will consider the first 6 months of the next year. So H1 2025, we will execute the spike for this time. Yeah, that's it from my side. If there's any question or what? Otherwise, thank you so much.
I think we have a question already.
Yes, Olivier.
Yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, I'm wondering, first was 7 days. Why 7? Like we've already discussed that we needed quite more for the advanced hybrid coupling than 7 to cover all the possibilities or all the dimensions, or like as much as possible. Is it a hard requirement that it shall be 7 days and not more? Or,
Yes. Yes, there is. So one of the main differences between our spike and AST spark-like is the preparing the IGM. That is different, the differences and the difficulty of making this IGM, so that we cannot do it like for more than, lots of business day. And yeah, so it is, it will be like for 7 business days.
So then it's going to be quite difficult to accommodate the different weekday, weekend, windy, not windy. Weekday, weekend, windy, non-windy, winter, summer, you already are at 2 times 2 times 2.
No, we have actually. I have, maybe, Maria, is it possible to look to the appendix for the business day? Yeah. Not this one, actually. Yeah, okay. So maybe the previous one actually is better, that this is like a 7 business. Yes, the 7 business day will consist of, for day when we have like Sunday and with the low wind, for instance. Then the second day would be work day with the highest wind. And then we also want to include the high load in France. This is one of the suggestions of the market parties. For the third day, we have like any work day, but with the average wind. So therefore, we consider the wind in our business day selection, as you can see. And the fourth day was the lowest exchange in core, but we changed it with the highest PV. Due to the suggestion of some of the TSOs, and also to have more renewable consideration in our business day selection. And day 5 is the highest exchange in core. And then we have 2 extra days that we consider the long outages in our calculation. So the long outages means the outages that will take more than 3 months. We're going to have to consider also as extra day.
Yeah, and the winter summer, it doesn't really matter here because you say you're only doing the first 6 months, so you're only in one season. Is that the rationale behind?
No, it is actually, we will consider the winter because we are going to do it for 2 times in a year. Therefore, the 6 months first, and then this consider the winter days in one of the 6 months.
Yeah, I get that. So we would have twice. It's a biannual exercise, right? We will have
yes.
And maybe another question is on the decision to do the next 6 months. Where does it come from? Because on our side, we are not only trading the next 6 months. We can already trade further than the next 6 months. So why do we? What do we do for that further than the next 6 months as of today?
I'm afraid I don't have answer for this. Steve, maybe?
Yeah, so the idea here is maybe a short recap of the SPY concept. So the origin is, as you know, Olivier, it's dates from CWE, so it's fully voluntary. The number of business days we haven't changed, but we've made the process more representative by making sure that we go through the full capacity calculation process. So that's different compared to CWE. And then we also updated the criteria to select the business days. So there's also some evolution, some improvement in there. Then to answer your question on the biannual part, so the objective of this half-yearly spike is to look at what are the planned evolutions in the grid, so which new lines will come into service, internal lines, interconnectors, to make a CGM for these coming 6 months, and then do the assessment on that. So let's say from January 25 to June 25, that's 1 half-yearly spike. And then we do again the exercise mid-25 for the grid evolutions, July 25, December 25. So in that way, we actually give you, an outlook in relation to how the grid is evolving within the next 6 months. And the frequency of that, you can see it's kind of synchronized to also a publication of a static grid model, which is also taking place on a biannual basis. So we're working with the evolution of a grid model on a biannual basis, and doing here the impact assessment with.
But I think we still need to recognize that it comes a bit too late. Like if as of today, we are in March 24, we are already trading the whole calendar year 2025. And yet we would know about the second part of 2025 only in mid-25, according to that. So, I mean, it's clearly better than nothing, which is the current state. So I think we do appreciate. But I mean, I think having at least for the yearly auction, which happening in December 24 for the whole calendar year 25, the whole view on 25 would be great somehow, because that's an important moment in the year where market parties are positioning themselves. I mean, I think I know that there is limitation and so on. So it's a bit of a wish list I'm saying here. But I think it's worth considering the pace of when the future is traded, and typically the earlier the better.
Yeah, I can understand how you look at it. Here, we didn't take that as a starting point. To be fair, we were wanting also for ourselves to have a view on what is happening in the grid in the coming 6 months. Also wanting to include the planned outages into it, so long duration outages. So that kind of the historical link with what was there in CWE. So that's how it evolved here. I guess that anyhow it gives some information, but you didn't have the hedging position in mind, that or a trading position in mind about that. So it really is about where we see as TSOs for ourselves the added value of getting more insight on how the evolving grid on short term will impact the daily capacities.
Yeah. And maybe one last question is, when there is several grid reinforcement that are happening in the next 6 months, you would combine them all, right? Even if there is the one reinforcement is coming at the end of the 6 months, and
Yes.
Yeah. That's it for me. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is it clear for everyone? Is there any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat, so maybe we can go forward then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think,
good
Sally,
afternoon,
that
everybody. Yeah.
that you already answered this slide. You presented it yourself 2 times when going through the agenda.
Sorry, it was not
I don't know,
surprise.
Reinhard, if you were there in the beginning, but Zelly already explained that there is no impact derived from the title.
But
Thanks
go ahead,
for
please
taking
explain
over.
it.
No problem. Yeah, maybe just to stress it then once more. So with the 15-minute MTU implementation in the day-ahead timeframe, early 25, the question came whether there would be an impact on the core day-ahead flow-based capacity calculation. The answer is a solid no. The capacity calculation process will still be performed on a 24-hour basis, and only SDAC / market coupling operators will be provided with capacities on a 15-minute MTU or 15-minute resolution granularity, so that SDAC does have the flow-based constraints on a 15-minute MTU resolution, and can consequently do the allocation on a 15-minute MTU resolution. And the approach for that will be taking the hourly results and basically having them for the following 3 quarters as well, and by that fill up the gaps that need to be filled in terms of time resolution. And also publication will switch to quarter hours, in particular then the outcomes, of course, from SDAC, which will all be on a 15-minute MTU granularity, like the connects with shadow prices and so forth. Are there any questions on this?
Thank you very much. Yes, don't hesitate to raise your hand or type your question in the chat if there are any. If not, thank you very much for the explanation. I don't know if you want to add anything else, but otherwise, for everything related to Spike, if market participants want also to add more details on the business days to forward for TSOs, don't hesitate also to contact me so we can add explanation to why we chose to select those criteria as well. I think on our side, on the side of market participants, we can do that. Is there any other requirement on your side for market participants, or is there any need for clarity more than this?
Well, if you can indeed wrap up the input that you gave with a short explanation behind it, starting from what we concluded today, then we have it documented. That will, of course, be helpful for us. So it doesn't have to be very long, but just a short description behind these criteria and the specific business days, that we will not forget about it. Thanks.
Very clear. Thank you very much. All right, then I think we are ahead from the schedule. So I don't know if the other participants are ready for explaining their next slides, the next subject, or if there is a break.
I see at least one of the presenters for the next subject, but not all. So perhaps we could indeed move the break that we would have after ROSC to now, so that we start exactly at 3:15, if that works, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we meet again then at 15:15. Thank you very much. See you.
All right. Back from a quick break. Next topic, ROSC and cost sharing. That will be presented by Philip and Brecht. Are you in the call, Philip and Brecht?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. So very small recap. So this morning we presented the core roadmap, and we also explained the importance of the ROSC process, the interdependencies with IDCC, as we had a big educational session on the parallel processes with IDCC and ROSC. So this information is now fresh in the minds of people. And the idea here today is that you talk us through a bit more in detail what the ROSC process is. It has been a long time that the topic has been brought to the Core CG platform, and that you present us the latest status with regards to the challenges we are facing and the replanning we are looking into. So the floor is yours, Philippe, to start with the ROSC part.
Yeah. Indeed, I will start with a short explanation of the ROSC process, and this will be followed by Brecht with a short look at the cost sharing process, which is also connected to the CSA here. Starting with the summary, you see here on the slide that the RCCs provide several services to TSOs, and one of these services is the coordinated security analysis, where we follow especially the SOGL Article 76, and from that derives the core regional operational security coordinated methodology, so the ROSC methodology for core, which gives us the guidance and the obligations how to implement this process. So the RCCs will provide us this service. For the core regions, this is CORESO and TSCnet. The RCCs has also combined their forces to provide the platform and the software for this coordinated security analysis, and combine it in a program which is called CoreNet. So if you hear later the term CoreNet, you know that this is a combined program of CORESO and TSCnet to develop the software for the services. What is the ROSC service in short words? It ensures us the security of the transmission system in the CCR at the most cost-efficient and effective means. That means we use an optimization, a global optimization, to determine remedial actions to ensure the system security, and this optimization ensures that the remedial actions are chosen in the most cost-efficient and effective way. And here we talk about a global optimization. That means we don't optimize every country by itself, but we globally optimize it and pooling so the congestions and the remedial actions. If you go to the next slide, we can have a more closer look on the process itself. The ROSC methodology defines two types of coordination processes to solve the operational security violations. One of them is the so-called CROSA, Coordinated Regional Operational Security Assessment. This is a regular coordination process which is performed on a daily basis, one time for day ahead and 3 times in the intraday time frame. This CROSA includes the optimization of the remedial actions and the coordination of remedial actions, so the coordination between the TSOs, whether the proposed remedial actions from the optimization can be accepted or not. yeah, this is a process which runs regularly on daily basis. In between this process, there can also be the need for further remedial actions. So you can imagine if we only have 3 times a day in intraday the crowser, even in between the crowser, there might be a need for further remedial actions due to changes in forecasts, for example. And in that case, we have the so-called fast activation process. This one can also be used as a fallback of crowser in case crowser fails, but normally used as in between the crowsers. This is not a core-wide process. It's between the impacted TSOs. RCCs can also be participating, and it does not have an optimization. The determination of the remedial actions is done on local TSO assessment. So this fast activation process is quite similar to what we are normally doing already nowadays. The ROSC also includes a process on an hourly basis where a security analysis is performed of the grid, so that where we can see in every hour for the remaining hours of the day where congestions occurs. This process is called IDRSA, Regional Security Assessment is the abbreviation. This is also quite similar what we are today also doing with our IDCF process. But this IDRSA is not directly determining remedial actions, so there is no optimization. It's just the security analysis, and the results of this security analysis can then, of course, be used for the fast activation process on TSO sites to locally determine remedial actions. So you see on the bottom of the slide again these processes in yellow, this IDRSA, which is running every hour for the remaining hours, but just including this security analysis. And then you see in the red boxes the crowser process, one time in a day ahead, starting at 6 until 10 in the evening, and then the 3 times the ID crowser in the intraday time frame. What you can also see is with the arrow a link to the IDCC process, so that we always have after the crowser process also a capacity calculation process. But I think you discussed this previously, as I understood from Steve. Indeed, the timings, just for information, timings of the intraday cruisers are still subject to further alignment. This is only indicative timings. Coming to the last slide, going a bit deeper in how this cruiser process looks like. So the regular process, day ahead and intraday. Here looking more on the day ahead time frame first, and showing here the different process steps, starting with input preparation and consistency check. Input means here on the one hand our grid model and everything what is required for this, but also on the other hand, of course, the potential of remedial actions. So, for example, the market offers for redispatching or the available remedial actions which are then subject to the optimization from where the optimization can choose which are the most efficient one. Afterwards, at 1800, we start with the CGM building process. So TSOs normally provide an individual grid model for their own TSO, and afterwards this model is then merged into one common grid model, CGM, for whole Europe, which is then finished at 1830. And then, starting with the real process, starting first with an N-1, so a security analysis of the grid, and then going into the remedial action optimization, and afterwards the remedial action coordination. So the optimization proposes certain remedial actions based on the most efficient remedial actions which can be used here for the congestions. And then TSO still have the possibility to assess these remedial action, and in case there are objections, they can also reject these remedial actions. After this process, we go also in a second iteration, a second run, starting again with input preparation in CGM building, and then have another run of the RSA, the optimization and the coordination, and at the end, a final validation session. The green part here, in the lower part of this flowchart, is in the target solution foreseen as an inter-CCR run. So this is not only linked to the core CCR, but also to the neighboring CCRs of core. But this is only to be implemented 18 months after the last CCR among the impacted CCRs implement the regional run, so the blue one. One last point, the ROSC process uses the CGMS standards, so the new grid model standards, and so-called NC profiles, so linked to the CGMS model. Also, the input data is provided in a similar format, and we must acknowledge that here this is the first time, the first process which uses this new standards as input, which is another challenge for us in the development and implementation. After the ROSC process, there is a cost-sharing process, and this will be now explained by Brecht in more detail.
Yes, thank you, Philip. So first of all, what you see on this slide is the image below. So this gives an overview of the different ROSC processes, and then linked to that the different cost-sharing processes. So as you see in the graph, there is one CROSA in day ahead, and there will be 3 CROSAs in intraday, as explained also by Philip. In between those CROSAs, we have these FAB activations which are possible. So activations for which you cannot wait until the next CROSA to coordinate and to order them. And so for the cost-sharing process, what's important to know is that there will be one cost-sharing process for every CROSA. So the objective of each cost-sharing is to distribute the costs of each CROSA among the core TSOs. So that's the objective. For the FAB activations, these are not subject to cost sharing, except in one specific scenario, which is the specific case where an ORA from ROSC was not available and it has to be replaced due to technical unavailability. So that's the only scenario in which a FAB activation will be subject to the cost sharing process. In all other cases, the requester pays principle will apply for a FAB activation. And so this is the first message, which is really important. One cost-sharing process per CROSA to distribute the costly remedial actions which were ordered in that CROSA. And also, when we apply the cost-sharing process, the objective is to apply the polluter pays principle, but more on that will come on the next slide. So unless if there are questions, we can go to the next one. So here, we listed some of the key principles from the cost-sharing methodology. So this methodology was approved in November 2020. Since this moment, we are in the implementation phase to build the tooling for this process. The first important principle is, of course, the polluter pays principle itself. And this principle means that excessive loop flows, which are beyond a certain threshold, will be penalized. And if such an excessive loop flow is causing a congestion in the network, then the cost to solve that congestion will be assigned to the bidding zone, which is causing this excessive loop flow. So this is the very high-level summary of the polluter pays principle, which is embedded in the cost-sharing methodology. And linked to that, we also have the second point, which is the loop flow threshold, because in the methodology, it is defined that there is a common loop flow threshold of 10%. And this means basically that if you see on a certain network element a loop flow up to 10% of the maximum flow of this network element, then this is considered acceptable, and it's considered to be a consequence of the zonal market model. However, if the loop flow is above 10%, then this is considered as pollution, and these polluting loop flows will be penalized with the application of the cost-sharing process. So that's the first point. So that's a very quick explication of the polluter pays principle. Apart from that, it has been also decided in this methodology that all the XNECs from ROSC will be subject to cost sharing. This means basically that all the network elements which are secured in the ROSC process, they will be subject to cost sharing where we apply the polluter pays principle. Then flow decomposition. This might not ring a bell, but this is one of the steps in the cost-sharing process where we identify the different types of flows on a certain congestion, where we identify not only the loop flows, but also internal flows, allocated flows, and PST flows. And in this step, it has been decided in the methodology that we have to ensure consistency with all the market processes in day ahead to calculate the allocated flows. And this means basically that when we compute allocated flows in the cost-sharing process, we have to use the GLSKs from capacity calculation to ensure a consistency with capacity calculation and also SDAC process, which are taking place before. And then final point from this slide is the mapping process. So this is another step that you will see on the next slide. And in this process, the objective is to assign the remedial actions from ROSC to the congestions. And in this step, a certain algorithm was developed and embedded in the cost-sharing methodology. And this algorithm is called the LCBM, so least cost-based mapping approach. And in that approach, the idea is that in the cost-sharing process, we will check for every individual congestion which remedial actions from ROSC were needed to solve that congestion. So I can imagine that all those terms are maybe quite new, or it was a very long time ago that you heard them. So of course, in a dedicated session, we can enter into further details on these topics. So here today, it's only a very high-level introduction to the process. But of course, on the next occasion, we can take more time to explain it a bit more in depth. I suggest that we jump to the last slide, which is showing an overview of the cost-sharing process. So these are the main building blocks of the cost-sharing process. And what you see is on the left-hand side in gray, this is the CROSA from ROSC. And then you see which information is being used by the cost-sharing process, which are the orange blocks. And so what will happen is, after each CROSA, we will receive from ROSC the full list of the overloaded XNEC. And based on this list of XNEC, we will select always one contingency case for every overloaded network element. And then these XNEC, which are finally selected for the cost-sharing process, they will be feeding into the mapping process and the flow decomposition process. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, the objective of the mapping process is to assign the cost from ROSC to the individual congestions, because this is something you don't know in the output of ROSC, because in ROSC, you only know that the full set of remedial actions is solving all the overloads, but you do not have a one-to-one mapping between remedial actions and congestions. So this is something that we are reproducing in the cost-sharing process to enable a fair allocation of the costs. So this is the objective of mapping. And in parallel to this, we have then the flow decomposition process at the bottom, where we identify the flow types for every congestion. So this loop flows, allocated flows, internal flows, PST flows. And based on those two informations, we know what is the cost for every congestion. We also know what are the identified flow types for every congestion. And then we can apply the polluter pays principle, which means that the part of the congestion which is caused by excessive loop flows will be assigned to the polluting bidding zone, and all the other contributions will be assigned to the connecting TSO, meaning the owner of the network element. So this is a very quick, I would say a much too quick crash course in cost sharing. But of course, we can take more time on a different occasion to discuss it in further detail, I would say, because I can imagine that this is not sufficient for you to understand it properly, of course. But I hope it gives a refresh of the topic, and it can raise maybe some questions from your side as well. That's it for cost sharing.
So far, no hands raised, neither questions in the chat. So we can move on with the status update slide. This is also the last slide of the presentation. So if there are questions lingering around in your mind, please don't hesitate to ask them.
You take this one, Philip?
Yeah, I can do so. Maybe to explain this here, we have in the methodology decided that the ROSC and cost sharing process is put into operation in 2 steps. The first step, in an intermediate step, only with manual topological remedial action determination. So the RAU only considers in this first implementation step PSTs and redispatching counter trading measures, but the discrete topological remedial actions are manually determined in this first step, and in a target solution in the second version, then integrating the topological remedial actions also to the optimization. This first step is expected to go live between Q4 2026 and Q4 2028. This unfortunately implies a delay of 1 to 3 years compared to the current roadmap, for which we actually had foreseen a go live of ROSC and cost sharing in 2025. The reasons for this are various. The implementation of the tooling and the challenges with the new input format are major causes for this delay. So TSOs and also this CORNET program, which I have explained before, are now in the progress of investigating mitigation measures to minimize this delay, and we hope with these mitigation measures that the confidence in reaching the lower end of this go live range, so Q4 2026, should be much higher. These mitigation measures are an improved vendor management regarding the resources the vendor can provide for the software development. So vendor means here the vendor for the software development, vendors, plural here. This measure is followed up by CORNET, and on the other hand, the other mitigation measure to apply a stepwise implementation with potential simplifications and prioritization of the scope, where TSOs together with CORNET and also NRAs are investigating what seems feasible as first solution. The purpose of this stepwise implementation is next to the prioritization of the scope and potential simplifications, also to deliver an end-to-end product for TSOs, which can be quite soon tested in the full process chain of ROSC and cost sharing. In that way, we can gain experience how, for example, the RAU, the optimization works out, especially with different parameterizations. We assume quite a big effort to fine-tune and parameterize this RAU, and with this end-to-end version, we assume that this is then feasible, and we can already start without having a full version here. But for this parameterization, we of course require quite realistic and precise input data, especially on the redispatching availabilities and the redispatch offers from you as market parties. Otherwise, if this is not realistic, then yeah, the parameterization is not complete and not precise, and has to be repeated. So the urgent request here to provide TSOs with realistic input data from your side. Yeah, furthermore, as said already, the other yeah, mitigation is to prioritize also requirements and identify simplifications to reduce yeah, or to save some implementation to go live earlier. These simplifications, the idea behind this is that we go live with first day ahead cruiser. This would be maybe one of the simplifications, that we don't go directly live with intraday cruisers, but with day ahead cruiser only. But this is also to be investigated, because it requires probably more redispatching, more remedial actions ahead of real time, because yeah, forecast errors are higher as far we go from the real time. So it might have also a high impact on market and higher costs at the end if we decide for such a simplification. So it's in general not a silver bullet to enable go live by end of 2025, which would be important timing from the CHIP 70 perspective. There is then at a certain point no further simplification possible without compromising the spirit of the ROSC methodology, so that we question the core-wide coordination of remedial actions and the least cost optimization, which is a basis for a fair cost sharing application. And on the other hand, also the need for quality of new tools and processes, at least of the level of our legacy tools, which is also very important. We must consider that the ROSC or the CSA process is not only from a market perspective, but also from the grid security perspective, a very important step or process within the TSO world. Please go ahead.
Yeah, we're asking the same question. Thanks, Philip, and Brecht, for this presentation. Are there any immediate reactions or questions from the audience? Maybe a concluding remark from my side. So this is really a challenging project. We have a lot of experience amongst TSOs in our CCR and core, previously in CWE for that matter, of integrating markets. Now we are integrating operational security practices. So these things are not done in exactly the same way nationally today. Also regulatory-wise, there is room for different national approaches on how market parties are remunerated and so forward. So there is a level of non-harmonization at a starting point. And so now we are trying to integrate these practices into a top-down optimization. So it really is also a mind shift, such a top-down approach. You have the technical challenges of file formats, of network formats. You have these more, let's say, there is a national legal dimension to make it all fit for purpose. It's not explicitly mentioned here on the side, but it comes on top of the challenge that we've put forward here. And the challenge we put forward here, this is actually the one where there is an impact also on your side. So what it boils down to is when we are looking for ways to simplify, we are somehow making this process less efficient. That will be the trade-off. So if we are saying we simplify the RAO, or we start with the day-ahead quota alone, not just the intraday quotas, the result will always be a less efficient set of remedial actions, meaning more volume to be activated, meaning more cost to be shared. So in terms of tariff payers, that's an impact, but also in terms of the market functioning, that will have an impact. Because when we activate redispatch, we will also have to make sure that the redispatch will remain available. So there will be implications attached to doing activations. So also from on your side, on market party side. So that's why we make this trade-off carefully, and we do the discussions not just on our side, but we do it together with the NRAs in a core IG setting. So this exercise has now started, not yet concluded. It will take some time, I believe, before it is concluded. And then when we have clarity on the way forward, we will, of course, inform you. And I see that with that, I managed to trigger at least one hand. Olivier.
Yes. So I think one question would be, we've never had any transparency historically on the security analysis process. And I don't know really for what reason we never had transparency on that. But if it's for some kind of a national security concerns or things like that. But is there something foreseen in terms of result publication of those newly coordinated process, or that would remain in the back garden of the TSO kind of thing, and we will never see really what are the congestion that are seen on the DACF, the remedial actions that are implemented, and so on and so forth.
So Philippe, that's a question in relation to the ROSC methodology itself, if there are reporting and publication requirements in the methodology. Can you provide an answer to that question?
In the methodology, there are requirements on reporting and monitoring, but they are towards the NRAs. I don't know whether it's foreseen then to publish these. That's maybe to be discussed.
I mean, I think there is the legal requirement, but there is also like, I mean, we for the capacity calculation, we've been used to have more than the legal requirement. So I'm not sure we should only look at it from the legal perspective of what is needed to be published, but also what is useful for the market to be known, and what is possible to be published, so that we don't breach any confidentiality or security laws. But maybe that's something worth considering on your side, whether transparency should be a topic or not.
Yeah, I guess I can't answer this immediately. I guess we have to take it with us and discuss it further internally, what can be published and what not.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Then if there are no further questions, thank you, Philippe and Brecht, for the update and a small educational effort, a reminder, a refresh of what the project is about. For sure, you will hear more of this in the next months and years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. And then we go to the last topic on the agenda, which is the geographical extensions. First of all, we want to update on the process on the Swiss consideration. And Julius, you are giving the information here. So please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Julius Schwachem from Swissgrid. A very brief update. A couple of months ago in the last CG, I already introduced the topic briefly, just as a short recap about the process, what is to be implemented. So we will have, with regards to the Swiss consideration in the day-ahead capacity calculation, there will be 2 new processes being implemented in the next 2 years. One is the process to calculate NTCs on the Swiss northern borders, which will basically replace the existing bilateral processes and bring it on a, let's say, EU regulatory compliant capacity calculation process. And then the more relevant point, especially from a core perspective, will be this new process, which will jointly validate the existing core capacities plus these new Swiss NTCs, which is the so-called cross-regional validation or core Swiss northern borders validation, which is on the right-hand side, the box in the middle, what you can see in this little flow chart. And these new processes, so the new SNB NTC process, and then of course also this cross-regional validation process, will interact with the existing core day-ahead capacity calculation, which you can see on the left on the left side in the blue boxes on this little overview. So this is nothing new. I presented it in the last time already, just for those who maybe were not present. This is the foreseen high-level flow chart. And what are the main changes compared to end of last year? The main point is especially that the core TSOs in Swissgrid now finalized the methodologies. We had a couple of interactions in the end of last year and the beginning of this year with the core NRAs and the Swiss regulator. The core TSOs in Swissgrid approved the methodologies and handed them in according to Article 13 of the core day-ahead CCM for validation. And this process is now ongoing. So all the core NRAs and the Swiss NRA are currently pursuing the national validation process, which is foreseen to be completed during the next month. It is foreseen to have a unanimous validation. So all core NRAs and the Swiss regulator need to validate this package. And then the formal implementation can kick off. In the meantime, the TSOs are, of course, already preparing that. So a couple of technical things, especially on the project level, are currently ongoing. For example, drafting of the business process documentation, discussions about the tooling design, and of course, also a little bit the governance between the TSOs, but also the RCCs for the implementation project. The aim is to have everything implemented by end of 2025. This is mainly driven by the last step of the MinRAM 70, which will be implemented in 2026 when all the derogation and action plans are fading out. It is, however, very coupled with the coordinated validation process of the day-ahead capacity calculation in core, because this feature, this cross-regional validation, should be one feature of the coordinated validation process. So here the timelines are supposed to be aligned as much as possible, and that would aim at somewhere end of 2025, beginning of 2026. So in that sense, currently not so much new to be reported, except that the validation process is ongoing and the implementation work is basically being ramped up. And what we could propose, especially for giving you a little bit more insight on the market side and for the market participants, is that in one of the next CGs we could organize a educational session to dive a little bit deeper into the process. Explain a little bit how everything would work out, of course, where we stand with the implementation, and maybe also give some insights in potential impacts. This all, of course, assuming that the methodologies are validated by the NRAs in the next month.
Yeah, maybe it's good to mention that since this is not a legal requirement or has a legal framework. The processes for validation are different in the different countries in core. So it's really up to the national NRA to how to organize this. But in the end, there will be a common validation of the NRAs.
Exactly. I try to continuously use the word validation instead of approval to make the difference to the EU CACM approval processes. Indeed, it's a little bit gray area, but we hope that we will manage that.
Olivier, please.
Yes, thank you, Julius. So one question is on the, I think it's a bit linked to the validation versus approval. Given these are only validation, does that mean that we would not see any official methodological documentation, or would we be able to see really the methods somewhere officially published somewhere?
So sorry to not mention it. Once the methodologies are validated, they will be published as all the regular CCMs as well. This is
so
foreseen.
Even okay, because that does still change a bit the approval package, let's say, of core, I suppose. No, there would be some amendment into that.
Yeah, it's not really an amendment to the CCM. It's the execution of an article of the CCM, I would say, if I can formulate it like this. However, we put the obligation in the methodologies that after the NRAs validated it, that the methodologies would be published for transparency reasons. So we try to be as close as possible to the regular official EU processes, just that, the legal approval step is different because it's not foreseen as Switzerland is not part of the EU.
We should normally have the same level of transparency in terms of method, both for the core flow-based impact and the SNB process, right? And another question is there any like parallel run or like impact analysis foreseen by 25 or not?
Yeah, this is the length and details are currently in elaboration, but it is indeed foreseen to have something during next year once the process is implemented. Of course, it will not go live until TSOs are also not 100% sure that everything is okay, and this would also include some parallel run. How exactly and by when and how long, we can give you the information next time.
Yeah, and maybe final question on my side, when we say Swiss northern border, do we talk only about Germany, Swiss, or Swiss, France, Swiss, Austria, Swiss, Germany?
Yeah, all except Italy, which is
okay,
of course the southern border.
Because I guess France is not exactly north of Swiss, but
yeah, we call it the Swiss northern borders.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Anything else, Olivier? Or
no, I think that's it for me.
No, okay, that covers it. Fine. Any other comments? Well, maybe the last question actually is the bridge to the next topic, which is the central CCR proceedings, because that is. By the way, thank you very much, Julius, for the presentation. Yeah, this is the merger of Italy North and the core region, of course. By the way, Central Europe CCR is still a working title, so it's not an official name at the moment. But the point here is that we want to inform you about the proceedings there. And as you know, this is first only on the day-ahead capacity calculation methodology. So it is a stepwise approach for this CCR. And here we have defined logical phases, of course. So first phase of preparations of the day-ahead CCM creation, then actually the creation and delivery itself, and then the implementation. And in the timeline on the bottom of the slide, you see the time indication for that. So the preparation is planned to be ended at Q1 this year. Then we have Q2, Q3, and Q4 of 2024 to work on the creation and delivery, and then there is 2025 where we have the implementation of the day-ahead capacity calculation methodology. So this is roughly speaking, the process, the proceedings. Yeah, if you have any questions, please. If not, then that's for the central CCR then. And Zeli, it's up to you now to close the meeting, I suppose.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Thank you all for participating to that meeting. It was very great to hear all of your questions and all of the information provided there by the participants and by the presentators. A very important meeting. Maybe to just remind that we also can still ask questions for the next meeting, which will be on the 6th of May. So if I'm not mistaken, we should market participants should send you a question before the 17th of April, before the next core CG meeting, which will be on the 6th of May. I don't know though if there is already an invitation that have been sent for the 6th of May. Not yet.
No,
okay.
not yet. No.
So that will come then.
Yeah.
Also, maybe just as a reminder for the Spike-like run, if market participants also have other business days to provide and more information on the criteria to select the business day for the Spike-like run, don't hesitate to come back to me as well. We will also try to provide that as soon as possible to the TSOs. And that's it for on my side. I don't know if you have any other point to make or yes, Olivier?
Yeah, I have 2 points on my side. One is concerning the forum, the Q&A forum. There are some topics that has been raised on this forum that hasn't been answered since more than 6 months. And we are always encouraged to go on that forum to get the answer to our questions, but it seems that there is no really commitment from the core TSOs to answer them promptly. So I don't know if we can try to do something about it, but for us it is a bit of a concern that there is still a lot of topics on that forum that are left unanswered after several months.
And is this about the day-ahead project or the intraday project, or just in general?
I'm looking mainly at the day-ahead session, but I haven't looked at the intraday. But maybe it's the same level of commitment. I wouldn't know for the intraday, but for the day-ahead, I'm just scrolling quickly through the topics right now, and I can see several topics with 0 replies, and that has been created for more than 7 months for some of them. And yeah, I know that there is that it's hard, that there is not unlimited resources, but I think we would appreciate that things get at least acknowledged to be under treatment, and yeah. So
okay, we'll pass on the message. There is normally the practice that when new questions come in, that in the PTs there are spots assigned to answer these questions. So at least there is a follow-up. There should be a follow-up. So we will investigate what went wrong there, and then get back to these questions. I don't think that we ever set a kind of hygienic rules on timelines to answer questions. But I would guess that if a question is posted on such a forum, that if after 1 month there is no reaction, then either the question is unclear and there needs to be contact to clarify the question, either it's something duplicate and we can throw that. But
it is fine if the question can be out of scope or but at least that there is some kind of a reaction, I think is needed.
Okay, but we will look into this and also try to see what if there are any reasons why there is no answer, what is the reason, and if it is helpful, maybe then to see how we can also maybe via USAID see how if some clarifications need to be provided, what we can do outside the Q&A forum to make it function better.
And maybe the last point is maybe an open question is why are we not doing any more physical meetings for the core CG?
Oh, good question.
Actually, we discussed it.
COVID is over, right?
No, we discussed it actually in preparing this one. So, but I forgot a bit the conclusion because we decided to have this not physical because in the end it was more practical. But it's a good point, Olivier. Yeah.
Yeah, for this one specifically, not all conveners could be present physical, and then it's looking at a screen in person. That's why we didn't do it, but perhaps for next time we can consider it again.
Next time to drink on the go live of IDCC.
Yeah. I think that would be appreciated for networking reasons, and it can still be a hybrid approach. I think in the Nordic, for the flow base, they are doing systematically hybrid meetings where there is both physical and virtual attendance. I think it would be appreciated.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for those points. And also, before I forget, next after the 6th of May, the next core consultative group meeting will be on the 17th of October. So that's it on the timeline now. Thank you very much.